really honored to be part of this amazing event where we are trying to analyze the dramatic changes happening right now on a truly global scale. And thank you so much for putting this together and for inviting me. Great thanks to Luda and to the New Literary Observer. The recent damages to luxury brand stores across the US draw our attention once again to luxury brand status as avatars of inequality, as Janelle Oakwood put it in a recent article for the American Vogue, and to the status of fashion in general as this exclusive space and exclusive practice, which often attributes beauty and value and dignity to certain people at the expense of others. And apart from fashion brands, obviously fashion magazines and other fashion press contribute to this sense of exclusivity. And we can see this very different kind of articles being published on Vogue in America and Britain currently as changing this notion of exclusive fashion, looking out towards more diversity and more inclusivity. And even before the lockdown and the pandemic, we have seen this amazing September 2019 issue of the British Vogue, which featured all these amazing women celebrated for their personalities, for their achievements, rather than for the way they looked or were styled. And we can see here this idea of inclusion and diversity. But this idea of diversity is based on the difference which is visible and which is readable from the surface of the body. So we can see women of different ages, of different body shapes, of different ethnic backgrounds. And this is absolutely amazing and very important to include these different groups and categories of people into the fashion discourse and into the fashion visual discourse. And there are, of course, its own pitfalls, such as tokenism here, or this commodification of this visible difference and objectivation of the living people and their bodies. But today I'd like to focus on the different kind of difference, sorry for the pun, which I would like to call the non-spectacular difference. And that is the difference in social status and in the buying power and in the possession of cultural capital, which does not so easily translate into visual symbols. And when it does, it is very often about ridicule and fashion caricature, as Joe Turney, among others, has wonderfully explored. So I would like to raise the question of the possibility of social inclusion in fashion journalism. I would like to refer to a marvelous article by Otto von Busch about inclusive fashion, where he posits that to make something inclusive may also displace and exclude others. And there are still losers in win-win scenarios. Someone's utopia is another's dystopia. As aesthetic hierarchies are fluid, especially in a time with an abundance of copies and options for entertainment, there is a continuous need to uphold attraction, barriers, and order. Status is upheld through denial and exclusion rather than accommodation. And von Busch actually analyzes the recent trends for sustainability and ethical fashion consumption as actually new tools of exclusion, which often serve to stigmatize poorer consumers who are accused of buying non-sustainably, of buying everything during sales, and buying these clothes which were made unethically and unsustainably. So according to Busch, every new move towards inclusion can actually exclude and displace others. And with this in mind, I was absolutely astonished at a feature which was published late in March 2020 in the American Vogue about the grocery store workers. And to your right, you can see one of those grocery store workers who is not a celebrity, who is not fashionably dressed, who is dressed precisely in this relaxed and dressed down everyday wear, her work wear. She's wearing these plastic gloves. And it is only through her pose that dignity shines through. And this pose makes this photo actually kind of a fashion shoot and adds, probably we could even say, glamour to it. And here you can see another picture from that article. Oh, and I forgot to say that I loved that this article appeared in the section on culture. I absolutely love this idea of culture, which reminds me of Raymond Williams' famous essay or manifesto that culture is ordinary. And here is another picture where we can see again how the photographer works with light effects and the effects of glass and reflection to create this very beautiful and romantic image. Well, at the same time, glass also works as a symbol of isolation and division and social distancing. And it is absolutely important, I think, that we can hear these people's voices and they tell their stories in their own voices. While in that feature, the space allowed to each of these voices was rather limited. Quite recently, it was announced that British Vogue comes out featuring key workers on its cover, where we again can see these ordinary women, ordinary workers carrying on with their jobs, with their duties, and we can hear their voices and we can see their beautiful persons. And again, it's interesting how the visual image is constructed. Here, for example, we can see how makeup and lighting work to glamorize this lady, Anissa Omar. But at the same time, it's interesting that she, as well as her other colleagues, appearing, yes, thank you, on these Vogue covers, they're all wearing uniforms. So it's also interesting to explore these connections, differences and similarities between fashion and uniform, which has also been explored to some extent by Jennifer Craig and other authors. And here I would say that we have, in some ways, a very typical Vogue cover because of this dramatic angle from which the photo was taken. And I particularly like this third cover because of the minimal interventions of the photographer into the image. So we cannot see any visible traces of this intervention, such as lighting or posing or makeup or something like that, just this image of the everyday. And to come to some preliminary conclusions, I'd like to quote the editor-in-chief of British Vogue, Edward Anningful, who in a different article wrote that our heroes today are different. There's been a shift in who we look up to and admire, and these people need to be celebrated. They were always heroes doing their jobs to keep this country on its feet. But they're also normal people. There is such beauty in normality, but it's taken an international crisis for us to see. I hope that this cover symbolizes a new era of community and care for each other. This is how we're going to live now. Now, this sounds very optimistic, and this hope for change is something that I would definitely love to share. At the same time, if we look back at the historical precedents, as many authors have also done in the fashion press included. So there have been these many parallels between the Second World War situation and the current situation. And we know that also British Vogue in the 1940s featured this everyday life of Londoners and these ordinary women. And then towards the end of the 1940s and in the 1950s, fashion returned back to its normality, to its exclusive and exclusionary nature, and probably even more becoming even fancier and more demanding and more aspirational and class-based than before. And for that reason, I would like to finish on this quote from the midwife, Rachel Miller, featured on one of those British Vogue July covers. To resume to normal would be a step in the wrong direction. She's speaking about a particular situation in the national health system, but I think it also pertains to fashion system as we know it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. Colleagues, questions, comments? Yeah. Okay. Let me see if there are any hands raised, physical or digital. If I don't see, yeah, Zemfira comment. Thank you, Ksenia. Great presentation. Have you come across any criticism of these decisions that British Vogue made about the covers, or were they unanimously approved?
Thank you so much. That's an amazing question, which I will certainly follow up on, because I only discovered these covers while preparing for this presentation. There was this feature in the American Vogue about the grocery store workers, which initially inspired me to suggest this talk. And now it feels as though social inclusion is the new normal with this unprecedented decision. But also definitely I'll need to look more into the context and how people react. So far the responses I've seen are obviously positive, but this doesn't mean that there are no negative comments.
Yeah, and Jana.
Yeah, I see. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Any question? Yeah. Remarks, comments. Yes, I wonder when we will get back to to normal covers.
Mm-hmm.
So we will soon see, I guess, the return to the normal.
So I have one, Ludmila.
Yes, Ingun, a question.
Yeah, it is a question, or maybe also a comment. I like very much the way you closed up your presentation with this discussion of what is the new normal. And I think it links back to Else's presentation, not talking only about what has been or what the lockdown have done to us, or how we are dressing, or what we are thinking, but also what we can learn and how things are going to change, or how we are going to change things when this back to normal is there again. And I think it is it's a very good reflection based on something. I mean, this photos from the fashion industry, but your conclusion is much wider. And I thought when I saw the presentations in the program we were reading in beforehand, that it was a lot of presentations about what has happened and not as much about what can we do. I mean, how do we wish the new normal to be, and what have we learned, and how can we use this opportunity to make change that we really want to be. So I thought your way of closing up your presentation was very good, because it is a lot of things we need to change. I mean, in the fashion industry, in the environment, in the respect for people and their jobs, in the way we are using dresses to make distances between people and leveling up, and yeah, it's a lot of problems. So I think you did a great job in making that so clear in your way of conclude.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I also see
some questions. Sophie would, yes, wondered about perceptions of beauty in the Vogue covers.
Well, Sophie, could you perhaps say a bit more about what you wanted to ask?
Yeah, to elaborate, specify.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We can't hear you, Sophie.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Just that I saw those Vogue covers, and like I suppose everyone else that saw them really loved them and thought, wow, what a brilliant idea, going back to kind of the 40s and the wartime. But when I first saw them, I thought, especially the Royal Mail worker, I thought that was a model, and then I realized she was a real person. So I just thought, if you could speak on classical beauty and people who are kind of easy on the eye being on the Vogue covers, even though they are key workers.
Okay, thank you. Also, probably I would need to think more about that and do more maybe digitally assisted research of Vogue covers, as Anna has suggested earlier today. But as I tried to show, there are certain visual codes which are instantly recognizable and which work to glamorize these models. And also there is this amazing comment from Jana that also this impression of spontaneity of choosing these people and just photographing them in their working environment is obviously also carefully constructed, and they are not just any people. And also we could say that there is this nod to the idea of diversity, because they are, well, ethnically diverse, and the midwife is actually from Northern Ireland, so also there is this idea of this multicultural and inclusive British society. But what is important for me is that there is this moment when the people would that would never ever otherwise think of themselves as Vogue models, and actually these models, these key workers, in their interviews or comments, they unanimously describe this experience as crazy or simply mad. So this is something that was not expected to happen to them. So I'm wondering if we can change the whole world and the whole society in such a way that this is less of a crazy thing and more of a, well, normal thing. Why everyone can be beautiful in a way, and appreciating this beauty is extremely important. I love this idea of beauty in normality, and I think it's very different from norm core, which was all the rage some 6 years ago or so, because of precisely of these class associations or lack thereof. But thank you very much for the question. Well, I'll think more about the beauty canons. Basically, this is what I do for a living. I think about beauty canons, but in this particular context.
Yeah, Ksenia, we have a question from Hazel Clark. Interesting to consider the recent change of editor of British Vogue and the just announced new editor of Harper's Bazaar. How much will the gatekeepers matter going forward in particular?
Well, obviously gatekeepers matter. And also, while thinking about fashion journalism, I've always been wondering about the role of the individual. Is it that a person comes and changes everything, or is it that a specific moment arrives which makes it possible for a particular person, particular individual to act in this place and change American Vogue or British Vogue the way it's did? Well, let's live and see. It's an open question, but I think, yes, so far gatekeepers matter.
Yeah, there is a comment from Else, and you can see it, and yeah.
Response.
Right. And Susan Sandler, yes, also speaks about question of labor. Yes, the use of their image, their agency for these industries of publication. Yeah, which is also important. Wow. Yeah, we can see, yes, that there is such a range of questions. Thank you so much for your presentation, Ksenia.